Hello and welcome to another episode of What's Good Mzansi with me, your host, Jared Petzer. Today we are joined by Natasha Freeman. Now, if you don't know who Natasha is, some time ago I got a call from a lovely lady saying, Jared, I love what you guys are doing. We would like to consider putting it into a book. And I didn't really, there was a lot going on for us at the time. I was really busy. So it took me a little while to come back to her. But after much thought and deliberation, I came back to Natasha and we started talking about actually furthering this. So joined with us today is Natasha. She's going to just give us a little bit of insight into what we're doing. We're not going to give away too much because obviously the book is still going into publishing. But it's going to be quite a fun, exciting conversation. We're so happy to have her. Natasha, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm so good. Thank you so much for including me in this super cool moment. It's just such an incredible thing to be a part of in any way, actually. Yeah, the book, I think I do remember that moment very clearly because I didn't know how to get a hold of you. And I had joined the page and I was watching all these stories unfold and I was thinking, this is such a huge moment, what's happening here. And just feeling the emotion of what was happening on the page. And I'm an author, so I just thought I would really like to try and put this into a book. Yeah, and then I rang you up. Finally, I got your number. Do you remember? That was very funny. I was like, I don't know if this is you, but it's me and we need to talk. So yeah, and then it emerged. It's been a lot of really hard work, but it's been a very special process to be a part of. Because
it really has been. It really has been. Tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, clearly you're not from South Africa. Just tell us a little bit about your background, your journey, how you got involved in writing.
Of course. So I'm originally from Canada. And I moved to South Africa sort of 21 years ago. I left Canada about 21 years ago. And I married a South African, but I kind of look at it like I'm married into the culture of a country. And it's been a massive journey for me, and a privilege of a journey. And I think that's why I was so impacted when I saw what was happening on the I'm Staying page. So my background is in literature, but also political science and gender studies and all sorts of really interesting, thought-provoking topics. Yeah, and I ended up here and we lived in New Zealand for a while and then we moved back 8 years ago because we missed South Africa. And in terms of writing, I've been writing pretty much my whole life. This will be my 4th book. Yeah, I don't really know where else to go with it. I'm getting nervous looking at you.
No, don't get nervous. Don't get nervous.
I hope you're going to edit this, Jarrett.
No.
Damn it.
So listen, I mean, you must have seen before hashtag I'm Staying launched. I mean, you must have seen that we were facing a number of challenges. I think the air was quite thick with all of these challenges that we were going through as a country. And just tell us, I mean, what was it like for you to first see this thing arrive on the scene? And
so basically, for me, I've always had a deep passion for South Africa my whole life. I mean, I remember even growing up in Canada, I was always very cognizant of what was happening here on the ground. I was always informing myself politically. Even as a young teenager, I was very engaged with what was happening in South Africa, particularly because of Nelson Mandela and my personal feelings about everything that was going on the ground here. I found it a very emotional thing that was happening. So when we moved back here, yeah, it's just always been in my consciousness. And I think watching the page unfold, it took me, I don't even remember who sent me the link, but I do remember arriving on the page and reading these stories and being so deeply moved because I had an understanding of the significance of what it meant in a human capacity. So for South Africans, I'm in no way trying to speak for South Africans. This book is being written from an investigative journalism standpoint. And to me, it's a human story. It's really about how South Africans are finding each other and finding themselves in their humanity, which has been denied in so many ways because of the past. And in that way, that's the most emotional part of it. And I think from a human standpoint, the story is relevant for South Africa, but it's relevant to the human experience. And I think that's why it speaks so deeply to people. You know, storytelling it's essential to our being as a species. You know, we communicate through words, we communicate through our emotions. And when we can identify ourselves in each other, it raises everything. And it sounds utopic to say it makes anything possible, but it really does, because if we're separated all the time, you can't achieve. It's like you're saying all the time, you've been posting stuff from the very beginning, and you're saying if we find each other, that's where our power is. And I think the same thing. So that's really how it became so moving for me to watch I'm Staying unfold. And that's actually why I think it was so big and has become as big as it has, because you're talking about something bigger. It's bigger than politics. It's bigger than culture. It's bigger than geography. It's bigger than tribes. It's actually about humanity.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to write about it. That's sort of my focus. I like to write about things that speak to us on a bigger human level.
I think that you know, you speak to the stories that started coming onto the platform when we very first launched, and I remember just being in tears. I mean, there were just one story after the next that literally had me, you know, just emotionally broken down, because there was so much beauty and agony and pain, but beauty was the thing that came out, and it was so nice for us to eventually see just exactly what was going on, because I don't think it was like a new thing. I don't think hashtag I'm Staying all of a sudden made everybody start behaving a certain way. I think this behavior was always there, and there was always this sense of yearning to help one another and to try and be there for one another, but there was never a platform for it to be shown. And
yeah, it did. It became a platform for people to express. And the thing that's fascinating about it, from a social media perspective, because there are obviously lots of criticisms for social media that are utterly valid, but what that platform did was provide a safe space for people to come together. And I think that's where your rules have played such a significant role. It's allowed people, for the first time ever, across boundaries that existed here before, to express together and to support each other. That, like you say, it was never really offered in that capacity before.
Yeah.
And the stories I just found so beautiful. You've got people sharing tiny moments that should be so simple, but the depth of the impact of those stories on the rest of us is significant, and it's because of the context of what South Africa is and where she comes from and what her people have gone through and are going through right now. Even with this, you know, lockdown, watching everything that's unfolding on the page, such distinctly South African moments that people are sharing, and finding each other, uniting in that across socioeconomic spaces that everyone previously would have never had a glimpse into, and now this platform gives that opportunity. So very beautiful.
Having a glimpse into the life of everyday South Africans was a very moving experience for me, because I think we become so lost in our thinking in terms of, you know, this is how my life is, so I assume everybody else's life to be that way. And that gives me reason to be complacent, and it gives me the feeling that I have the right to sort of point fingers and to criticize. But in reality, I don't know what you've gone through. I don't know the struggles you've been through in your life. I don't know what it's like to live in your shoes. And hashtag I'm Staying was that window. It was that window into the life of the everyday South African. It was that window into the life of people's plights and their struggles. And I think that helped us reach a new level of humanity, because for once we were able to say, jeepers, you know, I am privileged. I have had a privileged life, and I don't have to feel bad about where I've come from. It's just the fact that I need to be cognizant of the fact that there are so many people in this country that have not got the same opportunities. There's so many people that have not got the same gifts in life that I would have. And now that I can see that, it compels me to want to try and help where I can. And I think that's the thing, you know, that compelling that drawing of emotion towards somebody else's life to go out and out of my way to understand what they're going through. I think that's what #I'mStaying gave us a lot of.
One of my favorite things to watch is how people respond with a sense of humor. Like when someone posts a joke or a meme, and how it just crosses every boundary. Yeah. And you literally have, like, South African sense of humor is next level. It is just this utter joyful thing to experience, because it's so honest and simple and hilarious. And I love the page for this, when people share this humor and you suddenly have, again, and I always bring up the sort of culture and socioeconomic boundaries that never get crossed before. And now you have the same people laughing at the same things, and it just brings about a sense of like social cohesion, or a feeling of heart cohesion.
Yeah.
Which is really significant during especially these types of times. Yeah. You just feel like your family has grown.
Yeah.
In those ways.
I feel, and maybe you can just weigh in on this one, but I feel that there was a lot of racial tension in South Africa. There always has been. There's always been a huge amount of racial tension, and for good reason, because we've had these paramount things that have happened that have said, like, hold on a second, I don't like you based on the color of your skin, and it was one way, and then it became another way, and then I really feel like we've gotten to this point now where everybody's had like this aha moment, and they're like, it's got nothing to do with the color of your skin. It's got nothing to do with that. It's a deep lack of understanding that has caused these rifts and this break between us. And I think that the platform has taken so much of that away, where we are just seeing each other as South Africans. I went to this business council meeting in Johannesburg a little while ago, and it was held at the Holocaust Center in Johannesburg, and it was amazing. It wasn't just the Holocaust; they also spoke about what happened in Rwanda. The whole thing is themed about.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the stuff is crazy. At the end of walking through, they show the similarities between what happened with the Holocaust and what happened with Rwanda. And there was a lot of stuff that was similar, but there was also similar differences. At the end of it, anyway, at the end of this whole thing, I spoke to the guy that was narrating the whole thing, and I said to him, when do you think it's going to be acceptable for me to call myself an African? When is it acceptable for me to say I am a South African? I'm African. I was born in Africa. And it was something that stumped us, and it's like, if you go to America, or if you go to Canada, people that identify as being Canadians or South Africa or Americans or British or whatever the case is. I really hope that we can get to this point where we can really hold with pride the fact that we are African and we come from Africa, and we have this deep sense of Ubuntu, this yearning to be together.
I think something that's really, really crucial, and this is my being someone who didn't grow up in South Africa, this is my ability to view it from a different perspective, and maybe that's because I'm Canadian, I don't know, but I think a really, really crucial thing, it actually has nothing to do with being Canadian, it has to do with looking at the bigger picture. And it's super, super important to understand the context of how anything comes to be. And South Africa's historical context is so significant that to not honor it, it deserves so much honor and respect. And people feel the way they feel for a reason. And I think it is utterly important that is consistently recognized. So whether, it doesn't matter which side of the fence. So South Africa's past, it goes further than apartheid. It goes into, it's much further, and all of these things get touched on in the book as well, because you actually can't write a book about I'm Staying without bringing significant, respectful recognition to the context for the reason why that page matters in the first place. Because if I'm Staying had started in Canada, it would never have, I've always felt this way, and all the things I've written about South Africa, so this is my second book about South Africa, the first one is also in publication processes. This place, all these little stories matter because it is here. That healing moment is so significant because of the past that brought it to this place. And respect here is massive. If that's not happening, the future can't be seen. It simply cannot be seen, because South Africans as a people, it's just a place that deserves a lot of respect and honoring for all of the emotional turmoil that has led up to this point. So when you say one day can you just be able to say, I'm born in Africa, I'm African. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why you guys faltered on that conversation. It has to do with that. But I think, I know why it's a sensitive topic. I know why it is. But I think if we continue to give respect and to honor the spaces from which all of that pain was born, and then one day you can look at each other and say, we are humans.
Yeah.
But it's like, I've seen those debates on the page before. You know, people love the term Rainbow Nation, but there's a lot of animosity towards the term Rainbow Nation as well. You know, people say it's not perfect, it's not a Rainbow Nation. But in a way, what we're looking for there is humanity. And I think that's the original intention of the meaning. It's never meant to wash anything away or to eliminate distinctions, which are fantastic. That's the other thing the page does, is it honors individual cultures. It honors these beautiful, significant cultural differences that actually make South Africa. You know, that's what I think anyway. But I think, yeah.
You know, I did a post right in the beginning, and it was about losing the label. You know, it was about, you know, stop having these labels that we put on each other. And in a way, I wish I hadn't written it, because it is so important for us to know and understand our differences. It really is, because those differences, like you were saying, it's a cultural hotpot. We've got so many different.
Fantastic. I mean, really, South Africa is like bubbling with these awesome differences, which make it South Africa. I mean,
and we must never lose that, right? We need to keep that, because that's the stuff that makes us like so amazing.
That's the mind-blowing thing, I suppose, that happens when we are raised with an ignorance of racism, because that's what it is. It's actually an ignorance of racism. It makes us attach things based on color of skin, which don't exist. So it's usually like a cultural, we've got these different cultural, these differences between us culturally. And like you said in one of your posts a while ago, you said, everyone doesn't have to like each other. You know, it's impossible for everyone to like every single person. That's fine, you don't have to. But at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning of our conversation, what's happening here is bigger than those differences. What's happening here is a conversation about humanity.
That's right.
And if you can see each other in that humanity, you're winning. You have an easier heart, you have an easier psychology, and you can actually smile at people when you see them on the street.
That's right. Yeah, it's a bigger goal, right? That's the goal is so much greater than all of those things that are divisive, or all of those things that make us look at each other differently. The objective is so much greater. And I think you're right. You know, what we are doing is speaking to humanity. It's not necessarily a South African conversation. This is where it was birthed, but it was not. It's not a conversation just for South Africa. It's a conversation that the whole world needs to be having at the moment, because we are so divided globally. There's so many things that have come in between us. You know, and in a way, this whole COVID thing that we're going through right now has sort of brought us back to this place of, even though we are now social distanced, we are certainly more connected than ever, and all in this fight for survival together. And that's really what it is now. We are in a state of survival, you know, and we can only win if we stick together.
It's a huge thing. You're a very busy guy.
Sure. Yeah.
So and you were asking earlier about writing and how all that happened. I think with this book about the I'm Staying group, I've actually decided, because of what's happening with the pandemic and lockdown, there have been some really beautiful moments that are emerging on the page, and I'd like to expand a section of what's being written. So if members want to randomly check their messages they might see a little note from me wanting to use one of their stories, because I know that I've actually contacted quite a few members, and that book will be structured built on members' stories to sort of fill in the depth of what the I'm Staying page is about. And so I will be reaching out again in the next 2 weeks to gather a few more stories.
Fantastic. So let's just touch on the book a little bit, without going into too much detail. I know we don't want to give it away, but so just tell us the basic theme of the book in terms of how it's structured.
Essentially, the idea for me, it came from obviously reading stories, and the thought was to create it from an investigative journalism narrative. Obviously, because I'm not South African, and as mentioned, I'm not trying to speak for South Africans. It's actually I'm very much like to write about the human story, the things that unite us beyond our divisions, and the human search for that space. And I always like to incorporate just sort of interesting information about that, a little bit of science, a little bit of history, a little bit of this and that, to keep it interesting to read. And so the idea was to just build a cohesive narrative around a lot of the stories that were appearing on the page. So it's, yeah, like I said, I can't say too much. But what I would like to say is that the process of gathering stories is a very long one. And I have never been more moved by a project. And I've been writing for 15 years or something like that. And I do very in-depth projects that take a long time. And this one was under a very short period of time. So, but the people that I've had the utter privilege of interacting with, it's just been one of the most beautiful experiences I've had in a literary capacity, and emotional. Like the Stayers, the I'm Staying group, it's just a really, really incredible project to be a part of. And I wanted to, I'll do this anyway when the book is coming out, but I'd really like to thank the people that have agreed to let their words be a part of the book, because it's about them. It's about all of you. And it's sort of like an homage to that space and a celebration of it. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see it.
Nobody is more excited to see this book than me. I've got to tell you.
Yeah, and we've been chatting a lot, hey? Like you and I said, we've messaged back and forth.
Every time we're getting close to the end, something new happens. So it's going to end up being an encyclopedia.
And you've been amazing, like you get these frantic voice notes from me saying, Jared, what about this? What do you think about that? And you always, it's been brilliant. And it's, like I said, it's a privilege of my life to be in this country and to be able to write about it. It's a major thing. So
my life was so lacking in purpose before this whole thing happened. It was like I was just going through the motions. Every day was about waking up and just getting to the end of the day and starting the next one. And when these emotions sort of started bubbling up inside of me, and I took the leap, and we put this group together. For the first time in my life, in my entire life, I felt like I had a true purpose, like a real purpose, something that was, and it was always bigger than me. It was much, much bigger than myself. It was always about trying to just bring us together. And it's amazing to think that, a few months down the road, there's a book that's about to be published about something that we've done. And that the potential for this, to reach and expand so many more people is there now. Just about to get words on a page, just about to happen. It's really special.
And I think what you're saying is really significant, because I think it's something that a lot of people have been waiting for. I think that the space to find other people in kindness is something that people are waiting for and want. The response of people who join the group. So I think I joined the group at about 200,000. So it was like 2 days in. Just kidding. And I just, that's, I think, what was also so emotional for all of us that were participating in it and observing it, is the depth of emotion that people were experiencing, having the opportunity to experience each other.
Yeah.
Especially here.
Yeah.
It's, I feel like that is something that has spoken greatly through your starting the page in the first place, and why people were so drawn to it. Yeah,
Sure.
and I can't see, yeah, I just feel like people want to be joined in kindness. And I can't see that ever changing.
Now tell me, I mean, obviously we didn't have a smooth journey. I mean, there was a lot of critics. We had a lot of people coming in, and
Yes.
has any of that stuff made its way into the book? I mean, I'd hope that there's some level of, I'd hope that
definitely. Without saying too much.
No, not
There's
saying
definitely there's definitely a section that addresses those things directly, because it's important to address them. So there mustn't say too much. Critics' faces are important. It's important to always expand the narrative so that that thought is well placed across topics. Okay, so critics, it's important. But it can also be redundant. And it needs to be addressed in all aspects. So the backlash to the I'm Staying movement, that's why I make the point of saying I wrote the narrative from an investigative journalism place, because you can't talk about the I'm Staying movement without talking about context and talking about the backlash, and then raising the questions even higher than that. So the narrative definitely addresses the whole picture. So I would say that it will be interesting to people who are part of the page, people who were perhaps part of that other movement, the critic space, and people who've never even heard of I'm Staying. I think it'll be interesting for everyone to consider the content. It has something for everyone, if I can say that.
I've got to tell you, the other day I popped onto Twitter, and there was a whole bunch of posts that are being circulated talking about hashtag I'm Staying being responsible for COVID-19. And I was like, this is just getting more and more fun. Every time I go on here, it's just getting more and more outlandish, you know?
I think that, you know, what's really important to say right now, for anyone who is listening and participates in sharing fake news related to COVID-19, I mean, people are getting arrested for doing it. You know what I mean? So I think that people need to ask themselves what their motivation is. You know, and is it serving a better good, or like, what's the, I don't.
Well, listen, I know why they do it, because the hashtag is such a hot topic, and I think people will get exposure and to get themselves out there, they'll attach any sort of, you know, sort of crazy news to the hashtag, because it's sensationalism, right? It gets
That's actually, I didn't know that. That's crazy. Actually, that's really funny.
Yeah, there's been some funny ones. There's been just some hilarious ones, and you know, in the beginning, I got really angry about all of this stuff. I have to admit. I mean, I had to bite my tongue, and I had luckily I was in very good counsel. I had a wonderful mentors and people that have been on this journey with me. And their advice was always just do not respond. You know, do not respond, do not respond. And I think that was probably the best thing I could have done. Every now and again, I let slip and I'd respond to somebody, and then I realized after doing that it's pointless, because people are often coming at you not from a place of trying to understand the truth, just for disruption. They really just want to disrupt things, and if you feed that, it'll just run and run and run. So you just got to keep your mouth shut. But I mean, in a way, it's also it's quite an honor to have built something that everybody wants to take a stab at. I guess it's
well, everyone carries their baggage, and I think that whether that's online or offline, and that's also part of a bigger discussion to do with everything that's happening on I'm Staying, the people that are critical of it, whatever it is. Everybody has their own baggage, and I think it's very important. Sometimes there's great power in silence. Sometimes.
Yeah. No response is a response in itself. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've just joined us, we're just about to come to the end of our show, but you can catch up with us a little bit later. It will be on the I'm Staying Media page, not the Facebook group. And it will also be up on www.imstaying.co.za. We are talking to Natasha Freeman. She's writing our book, hashtag I'm Staying book, guys. Can you believe it? So it's a very exciting time. It's going to be published by Penguin Publishers, and hopefully it's going to go international. Do we have an idea, rough idea, as to when it will?
Well, essentially, with lockdown, that puts a pause on everything, and that's every industry. So I can't give a clear indication of a date, but as soon as I get confirmation from Penguin, we'll share that information. But yeah, basically this book is about the unspoken impact of I'm Staying, and it's about all the great people that make up the stories that happen between everyday life. It's all about everyday life, the stories between the politics, and it's about all of you. So yeah, it's
Cannot wait. This is so exciting. Natasha, thank you for spending time with us. I've really enjoyed talking to you. We actually haven't spoken enough face to face, over this entire process. I mean, it's all been WhatsApps and voice notes, and it's so nice to have some time to sit and speak with you. So
absolutely lovely. And once the lockdown is finished, maybe you'll get up to KZN. You were meant to come up here for entrepreneurs presentation.
Yes, yeah. I'm hoping that all our public talks kick in again when lockdown's finished, because I'd really like to get out there and just continue spreading the message and talking to everybody. And definitely when I'm in your side of town, I will make it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. It's been such a privilege.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us, Natasha. Take care.
Great. Bye. Bye.